Hello, it's Dave the Mechanic again, and today we are working on a Infiniti Qx60. First place I'm going to start is by pulling this cover off. Just grab from behind here, up, and then you should be able to the bottom up and out that way, and then that's how you get that off. Luckily, it's not as hard as it looks. We're basically just removing our intake manifold, throttle body, and a lot of these plastic pieces around it. So we're gonna start with the easiest thing. We're going to remove this right here. There's two clips here. You pull those tabs and it'll pull right off like that. And you can set that to the side, and then there's two 10mm nuts to get this little piece off here. All right, I took the two 10mm nuts off. I was able to move this bracket out of the way and move this box up and just hook it back there, and now that's out of the way. There's another 10mm bolt here and one here to get this out. Once you have those bolts out, you should be able to just wiggle this around and move it and pull up on it, and it should come on. Alright, now is a good time to go ahead and disconnect the battery by removing the negative terminal. It's a 10mm nut right here. Go ahead and loosen that up, take the negative terminal off and put it to the side. Alright, now to get this box out, you have to undo this harness right here, remove that, loosen up that hose clamp, and pry off this wire from this box right here. This is being held in by these two squeeze tabs here. If you get behind this and you squeeze those tabs, you'll pull right out. Once you have it all the way off the box, then you have it, the harness taken off, and then you undo the hose clamp. You can pull these two tabs down and pull this box up and out, and you pretty much reveal your filter. And you can take a look at that. You can tell they actually just got this changed not too long ago, so we're gonna leave that in there. Now we're gonna go to the other side and we're gonna loosen up that hose clamp, and then we're gonna be able to pull this whole tube off. Once you have it loose, you can just gently take it and place it to the side, just like that. Now you have clearance to go in here and get to your throttle body. Just place it a little bit more like right there. Okay, now you got clearance in there, and there are 4 bolts to get out. One here, one here, one here, and one there. And of course there's a harness here. We can undo that harness, press the tab and pull back, and then there's another clip here where you have to go behind it again and squeeze that tab to get this wire out. And then, like I said, we can remove those 4 bolts. I have a 5mm Allen wrench head socket, and I'm gonna go ahead and use that to get the 4 bolts out. When you take this bolt down at the right bottom, then you'll notice that it also holds on this little bracket that holds your harness. So just remember when you're putting those 4 bolts back in to put this little bracket back up before you do that right bottom bolt. Alright, once I removed the throttle body, you'll see the gasket here. This would be a good time to change the gasket, at least when you're putting it back together. once you put everything back on, it would be a good time to change this throttle body gasket here that goes to the intake manifold. But for right now, we're gonna focus on this. There's a bolt right here that we need to get to. It's a 10mm bolt, and there's a hose clamp on this line right here. Let's see if I can get back there. There's a line right here with a hose clamp on it. Let me get that off. Alright, we're gonna have to go ahead and remove this hose from here, only on this side. And there's another hose here. You want to remove those. Just get your pliers, gently twist, gently grip until you get some traction for it to move. And once the hoses start to spin, then you can try to pull them off with maybe a flathead. You get it down in there and you get behind it and you pull back like that, and just like that, it's off. Okay, now that I have this one off, with this one it's actually easier to take it off from right here. Just get the flathead and just push on both sides one at a time, and it will slowly work its way off. Make sure you alternate sides. Don't try to push it off all from one side, and then eventually it will pop off. And now you have that hose loose and this hose loose. Now we can go ahead and, it's a 10mm bolt to get this out. You have this one right here, another one right here, and one right here. Just get those out. All right, so to get caught up right now, we have all of these loose. We have these loose, and this loose. Now there's another tube here. We pop that out of here, and then we pop that off of here. You can use the same flathead technique to get behind it like that and slowly pry it from different sides. And just like that, it's off. And once you get it out of here, I'm about to use two hands to get this out. All right, I had to use two hands to get this out of here because it's real tight. But once it's out, then this could move around, this could move around. And in order to get this one to move, we'll have to take off this hose clamp right here. All right, once you get this hose off, now you can move this around more freely. And there's two more bolts to get off down here. There's one 10mm bolt there, and there's another one. I'll move this stuff so you can see it. All the way down there. Another 10mm bolt right here. We get those two off, and we can move this rail. Once you remove those two main bolts that's holding this rail, you're able to actually remove this rail from the intake manifold. And that was our main purpose, to get it from the manifold so we can remove the manifold. All right, now to finish getting the manifold off, there's another 10mm bolt here that's holding the bracket. We have to remove that right now. See, once that's removed, now we're able to move this bracket off and have more access to be able to pull this intake manifold up and out. And also in the back, we have to go to the back because there's a bolt back there as well, and there's also a hose clamp we have to get to. But it might be easier to get to the hose clamp from up top here. You can see it there. If you can get that hose clamp off and get that hose off of there, Once I removed the hose clamp a little back, I was able to get my wrench back there around it to give the hose a little turn. That way it loosens up and makes it easier to get it off. Just make sure you're gentle, just give it gentle turns. And now we can go ahead and try to get that hose off. All right, now way back there, there's another hose. You see that silver hose there that I'm turning? There's another hose clamp. See, that's the hose clamp that I'm gripping now. You take that, you pull it off, and you do the same thing. You grip this hose and you turn it a little bit. You just give it a little twist left to right to loosen it. Let me move this out the way. Alright. So now you should be able to see it better. So grip it and you give it a little turn left to right, a little wiggle, and then you should be able to pull that hose off as well. Alright guys, this is the tricky part because you won't be able to see it, but once you remove that last hose, this is the first hose and you out the way, and this last hose right here, once you move that off of this pipe here, you reach right back behind it. There's a 10mm bolt that's holding this intake manifold down. You have to get maybe a small 10mm wrench, ratchet wrench, or a small socket with a 10mm socket, and reach back here. You have to feel for it and get that 10mm bolt out. That's very important. All right, so once you have that bolt off, that's literally the last thing keeping you from removing your intake manifold, other than the actual manifold bolts themselves. But we had to free up from everything else. So I got this these lines here. I brought them back and I used wire to keep it from coming back that way. So now I have clearance and access to really attack the intake manifold. So there's a nut here and another one on the opposite end, and there's 4 bolts in the center that's holding down this intake manifold onto this engine block. So we're gonna go ahead and remove those bolts now. All right, so because of all the prep work we did with all the unplugging and hose removals, we were able to easily lift it up off of these studs and pull it back. Now the only thing that's still attached is this hose back here that I actually didn't take off, but just to make it easier and to move everything out the way, we're going to just go ahead and attack that. So it's just a simple hose clamp, and then pull this hose off, and then we'll be able to actually remove the whole piece and sit it outside of the car. All right, so we got the intake manifold out. We can take a look at the gaskets. I'm gonna just go ahead and recommend for her to change these gaskets out. This is very important. You don't want anything falling down these holes. This is where the top of your valves are. You don't want anything falling down there. You can just go ahead and clean up nice, but don't use anything that's going to have any particles on it, any kind of fabric that's going to have loose particles going to fall off and fall down there. It's not that hard to clean. And once you get it nice and clean, cover it up until you're ready to put the intake manifold back on. So by covering it up, you're going to take big enough pieces of rags that it doesn't fall down in there, and just stuff the holes. Like I said, make sure you use something that's not going to break apart. Don't use any napkins or paper towels that can break apart and drop pieces down there. Make sure you use a nice solid piece of rag. No old rags, those break apart and don't fall apart. And now that you have it nice and covered, we can go ahead and continue with our work. All right, so once you get your new gasket in, then we're ready to go ahead and put our intake manifold back in, so we can remove these rags, and we can go ahead, flip our intake manifold back over and position it right back into the space and drop it right on these studs carefully. Don't let your gasket pop back out. Make sure this surface area here is clean. We should have already cleaned it before. And so go ahead and put your intake manifold in, and we'll take over from there. So right now I got it setting up there, but not all the way on. I just have it up there far enough so I can go ahead and get this hose onto the back right there. And once I get that hose there on, I'll go ahead and put the intake manifold all the way on. All right, so now I have the intake manifold set down on these studs. I have the hose back here on the hose clamp on that side. Now I can go ahead and get my bolts. I have 4 bolts that's set in here, and then 2 nuts that's set on here. We're gonna go ahead and get those in now. All right, so I have all those bolts and nuts tightened down, so the intake manifold is officially on. So now we come back around here, and remember there was a 10mm bolt that we took out of this bracket. So we're gonna put that 10mm bolt back in. Okay, so before you get that 10mm bolt all the way tight, you follow the line that it's attached to right here, and you go ahead and you put that 10mm bolt right in there, and then you tighten that up, and then you go and you finish tightening the one over here up. Now if you remember, there was a 10mm bolt that we took out of the back of here. There was a bracket also, so we're gonna put that bracket back up, and we're gonna put that 10mm bolt right back into that bracket. So there's 2 hoses back here that I have to get on, those same ones that we took off earlier. So there's one of the hoses there. And slide that hose on, and then we get that hose clamp on. That's the best I can show you there from this angle. Now we grab this hose and we put it right here. And we get pliers and we put that hose clamp back forward, and that should complete the 2 hoses in the back. Okay, now that we're done with the back, it's time to come back to the front. I undid my wire, and now I can flip these lines back over to where they're supposed to be. Put this one right over that screw hole. Just put them close to where they go. The first bolts you want to put in is those 2 bolts that holds on this main bracket right here, and the other one over here. Once you get those 2 on, we'll go from there. Once those 2 main bolts are in, we can come back up on top and set a bolt right here. And to hold these 3 on, there's 3 10mm bolts that hold them on to there. We're gonna place those in as well as this one. All right, so we have all these lines secured back up here, so we can focus on a couple of these hoses. We took this one off here, Go ahead and pop that one back on. And right up here, we took this one off here. We can go ahead and put that one back on. And right down here, we took this hose off. Go ahead and pop that one back on. And then tighten the hose clamp. And then this one here, you can go ahead and stuff that back in there. And pop that back in there. Alright. So just a quick run over. We have these back on. We have these lines back up here. We have this here back on here. We have this hose, vacuum hose back on here. We have those two bolts down to hold that back up. And we have the two hoses in the back connected. The 10mm bolt back on that bracket connected. And so now we're ready to go ahead and start putting our throttle body back on. With the throttle body, once you get your new gasket in, all you gotta do is place your throttle body back up to the intake manifold. Put your 3 bolts in first, the 2 at the top and the 1 at the bottom left, and you do the 1 at the bottom right last, because you have to put this bracket right here on and then put that 1 on the bottom right. All right, we have all 4 of those studs in. You can go ahead and plug that back in. That's the harness for our throttle body. Now we can take this breathing tube, slide it right back over, push it right back onto our throttle body, and once we get it on, we'll tighten up that hose clamp. Alright, so now after making sure your filter is seated correctly, we'll take the top of this housing and we'll set it back on. And once you get that set in, push your hose back on, tighten your hose clamp, and close up the box. Alright, so we have our box back on, our air box with our filter. And now this plug, this harness, will push this part back into this to clip it in, and then we'll connect the harness back onto the box. Okay, so now the box is complete. Let's go ahead and reattach our battery and tighten up that 10mm. Now for this breather box, basically you just set it right back where you took it from. You set this piece right above that piece, slide in like that, drop these openings right back where they go, and you take your 2 bolts, drop them in there, and you tighten those up. Now let's get this bracket, set it back where we got it from, and we'll take those 2 10mm nuts and place those back on there. Now we take our box back down and we set it from underneath, set those clips right on those 2 forks, and push it to the clicks, and that's it for that box. Down here with this main harness wire, we pop that app out. Let's put that little tab back in, just like that. Thanks again for watching. See you next time. All right, well, that's another video in the books. If you like the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment. If there's anything I left out, let me know. Anything I could have done better, let me know as well. All feedback is welcome. So until next time, this is Dave the Mechanic. See you again in another video.